Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. Today's guest is Dr. Tom Ingegno. DACM has over 23 years of experience in integrative and functional medicine space. He owns and operates Charm City Integrative Health, a multifaceted clinic that New York Times bestseller and futurist David Howell has called Future of Medicine. This clinic provides a multidimensional approach to reducing inflammation, improving circulation, and regulating the immune system. Tom has taught at two prestigious schools for East Asian medicine, is a published author, and helped expand the scope for the practice of acupuncture with his role as chairman of the Maryland State Board of Acupuncture. He served as a director of chain of wellness centers in the Mid-Atlantic, developing treatment protocols and managing practitioners. Dr. Tom has been featured in both consumer and professional media, spreading his message of health using modern research, traditional practices, and humor to make complex theories and treatments understandable. His professional passion is to help patients and like-minded practitioners develop no-nonsense practices to allow people to thrive. So welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Peggy. I know we're going to have a great time.
Oh, I'm so excited for the conversation. Well, why don't you start us off by sharing a little bit more about your personal journey and how it has led to where you are today?
I love that I get asked this so much because, I really feel like if you don't look back at that, you don't realize how far you've come, right? You just keep going. I started out as a lot of kids do, mom and dad want you to be successful and they go, oh, you're doctor, lawyer, business executive, I believe is how that Little Boxes song goes. But, so it was, I wanted to help people. So I'm going to be a doctor. We had people in healthcare in our family. It made sense. My grandfather was a pharmacist. I have an uncle who's a pediatric neurologist. His wife is a nurse practitioner. That's actually my godmother. And, family all throughout
Mhm,
in, various healthcare fields.
mhm.
So here I am prepping that I'm going to be an MD. And my junior year, let me start with my junior year of high school, actually. I was helping my grandfather in his pharmacy and he was counting out pills. And he goes, these pills are $5 a piece. The person that is taking them needs to take 3 of these every day for the rest of his life. He's on a fixed budget. He was a migrant worker, so he was getting cash at the end of the day. Because do you know how expensive that is for him and his family? And he was very upset about it. He always we're Italian, we're immigrants too, and he always called Latinos his people's people. So there was always a special place, right? He actually learned Spanish to be able to communicate with them.
Mm, nice.
And he said, there's got to be a better way to do this, and I'm hoping you find it. And that kind of got locked in the back of my head. He died about a year later.
Oh, wow.
And I completely blocked that out. And it wasn't until college where, I'm taking all these these, bio and your organic chem and all
Yep.
those core classes where I'm in a room with 200 people that are incredibly smart. We could argue most of them were smarter than me. But you couldn't ask them questions that were like a personal kind of relatable level, right? They memorize everything. You go, hey, how was your weekend? Oh my God, I didn't do anything. Or I didn't, like I don't know how to answer these more social questions. And I
Mhm.
always thought that was very weird. Yeah, like we want doctors to be able to memorize everything, but it doesn't set them up to have compassion and interact with patients in a meaningful way. And then I had a couple of weird experiences where, like, I showed up to to a doctor's appointment, and I needed the first appointment because I had to get to work. And it's 8 a.m. and the waiting room is full. And I said, I thought I had the first appointment. Yeah, you and everybody else here. Well, there's only one doctor. How the hell? And then it was 9:30, and I'm going, well, I'm gonna be late to work. Where's the doctor? And they said, oh, she's in surgery until 11. And I said, how dare you book appointments? Like, I'm watching the waiting room just get more and more crowded. And I said, this is wrong. Um, now I'm saying that, and occasionally I run a little late in my office. But during my junior year of college, in the intercession, that winter break, I got a postcard in the mail from an acupuncture school that was having an open house, and I said, "Wow, that's kind of cool. It's right down the road. I'm going to go."
Mhm.
And I came home with the paperwork and applied right then and there. And 2 weeks later, I was enrolled. And my junior year, second semester, I started my master's program in acupuncture as well, and never looked back.
Nice. Nice. So acupuncture, you know, well, first of all, the credentials you had, DACM.
Yeah.
If the
So that,
listeners don't know, can you tell them that? Because it's not like, people hear Dr. Tom, and I think
yeah.
the immediate thing is an MD.
MD. Yeah. And I never want to portray it that that's the case, right?
Mhm.
I think Dr. Tom's a little bit easier to say than Ingegno.
Mhm.
So people default to that. Um, but my doctorate's in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. My master's is in it's a master's of science of Oriental medicine. We're backing away from using the word Oriental, not that we're calling people that,
Mhm.
but the at one point we even had a degree called OMD, so Oriental Medical Doctor. And a lot of Western physicians were concerned that somebody would think that they were going to an Asian MD.
Mhm.
So that title has fallen out of favor. Our field is a bit ragtag. So I think there's 6 different doctorate degrees and about 8 different master's degrees, and most of us all do the same thing. So acupuncture is the regulated profession in there.
Okay.
But we all do some kind of herbal medicine. A lot of us do Asian body work like Tui Na, Shiatsu, massage, um, breath work, meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, dietary advice. All of these fall into the scope of East Asian medicine. Cupping, moxibustion, gua sha. These are all different techniques
Mhm.
that many of us, as licensed acupuncturists, which seems to be the standard license for every state,
Mhm.
uh, do. And in a lot of ways, the rest of it kind of gets pushed behind acupuncture just because that's what the regulatory board decides that we need to be, monitored with. Um, it is a huge field that evolved over thousands of years, and that gives it a lot of leeway. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, thousands of years there was no differentiation. They did the surgeries, they used
Mhm.
whatever other modalities they could to take care of people, and now here in the States we're a little bit more boxed in. We're in Asia, MDs practice acupuncture in China in the hospitals. In Japan it is a separate track, but Japan has some very interesting rules that we don't need to get into. That'd be
Yeah.
horribly boring for the listener.
Yeah, we got some other things we want to
Yeah,
talk about
yeah,
today.
yeah.
Maybe another time.
Yeah, that's fine. It really, Japanese legislation is not my strong suit either. So,
That's all right. You talk about, the acupuncture is what, like, most of us in here in the United States that's a regulatory thing. So at
yeah,
least most of us have heard of that. So how has practicing all these other kind of um, dimensions underneath that everybody has? You talked about herbal medicine and like
yeah.
Tai Chi and Gong and cupping and all of these things. How have that, like, practicing those East Asian medicine techniques influenced your personal life?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it's a weird thing. This field is very different from a lot of other fields.
Mm.
You can go through the motions, and there's some people that are really good marketers, and they go through the motions, and they run a practice. But my mentor was really one of the few that really hammered into people's heads that, like, look, you got to live this, right? So you can't just tell your patient to do something. I mean, there's a story about Gandhi. A woman comes up with her kid, tells the kid to stop eating candy, and he goes, "Come back in a week."
Mhm.
Uh, and then he comes back in a week. He goes, "Stop eating candy." And she goes, "Well, why did you tell him a week ago?" He goes, "Because I was eating candy." So the idea is that if we're going to tell our patients to do something, we need to live that and embody that ourselves, right? So I talk a lot about meditation. I was trying to meditate since 1994, and only in the last 5 years has it been a consistent daily practice. Five and a half, maybe closer to
Mhm.
6 now.
Mhm.
But these things that really help us live our lives better, that we should be doing, we should be sharing with patients. And a lot of East Asian medicine had its roots in folk medicine. So a lot of things kind of transferred from the clinical practice to like home practice and vice
Mhm.
versa. And that really depended on who was, in charge and who was calling the shots, but also, trends throughout history. Oh, this culture likes this, so we do this more. And kind of going with the flow and following this natural ebb and flow of human evolution, which I think is really super cool. But yeah, you have to live and breathe this stuff. You have to be an embodiment of it, and it's not that you're judging your patients because they are or aren't doing something.
Mhm.
But I think the expression is you can only take someone as deep as you've been. So it's
Yeah.
a constant cultivation for me, and hopefully the patients see that.
Well, yeah, and I'm just thinking at how much more beneficial it is to your clients, patients that you've lived it.
Yeah.
but it's a different, you can like the book knowledge versus actual practice
Experience.
knowledge
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
experience with that. So, I would say that the rapport there would be great because, oh yeah, I've done this and this is some of the struggles, and they can kind of look to you as an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, and John Lilly, he's the inventor of the sensory deprivation tanks. He was huge into psychedelics and a whole bunch of other stuff. But he once said, and he called it Lilly's law. Never do something to a subject that you haven't done to yourself. Right. And I think that's an interesting thing. He happened to love ketamine, probably a little too much. But um, I think there's some truth in that, right? Because when people come in, and especially if this is all new to them, I mean, we
Mhm,
do a lot of stuff at our clinic that some people are like, what the hell is that? Right.
mhm,
So acupuncture probably a little bit more mainstream now, and that's
yeah,
definitely changed in the 23 years I've been in practice. But the first question they ask isn't why would I do that? It's what does that feel like? Right.
mm,
Even does acupuncture hurt is really them asking, what does it feel like?
mhm,
So unless you've done it yourself, unless you can tell your patient what to expect, and even all the staff at my office, I actively encourage them to use all of our other services and exchange treatments and be able
mhm,
to better inform those people that are coming through our doors, like this is what to expect.
yeah,
And we have 3 other acupuncturists at my office, and it's like the staff has now gotten so good at going, oh, I think you should go see this one.
mm,
Why? The way you described your problem, I think your personality would best fit this practitioner, which is half the battle right there. Getting that
right.
trust and rapport really leads to better outcomes for everybody.
Yeah. And that's just like your staff is just in tune to all the staff that are there
Yeah.
and best suited. You're best suited for the outcome. You're thinking about your patient, you're thinking about your
Yeah.
client and their experience and what a benefit that is to go, you know what? I think this person, because I'm thinking of my own doctor's office and it's just like, oh, well, who do you see normally? And I'm like, well, I see this person, but I like to see that person for this, but I would like to see this person
Yeah.
for this issue. And they're like, well, yeah, but this person's your primary, but I want to see this person, so
Yeah.
it's like, you really have to be an advocate for the staff in your office. They're being an advocate for the person coming in.
And it's funny because we do have like we have a lot of long-term patients. I mean, Baltimore has really just like adopted us and said, "Oh no, this is where we go," which has been a blessing.
Yeah.
But even then, even acupuncture patients that I've seen for years and years, they'll like, "Oh, I can't get on his schedule. I'll go to somebody else." And then they realize like, "Oh, when I feel this way, I'm going to go see this guy or I'm going to go see her." When I feel
Mhm.
that way, or I want this done, and I know Tom doesn't do as much of that as this person does.
Mhm.
So it's become less of an ego thing for me, which is great because you always want to be like the best. uh but yeah, when people come in and they're like, wow, I had a really great experience with so and so, it's like, wow,
Mhm.
that's great, we got it right, we
Yeah.
got it right as a team. And there's an expression, and it's one of my favorite expressions, and I had somebody kind of make fun of me. They're like, oh, that's not personal, I signed his book as a colleague of mine. And he's like, that's not personal. I'm like, this is the most personal thing I could write. And the expression is acupuncture is an expression of humanity.
Mm.
And it's the interaction between two people, right? And the
Mhm.
that patient and their community, and that practitioner and that patient, and that practitioner and the medicine, and it's this big esoteric kind of thing, but it really influences everything we
Mhm.
do, and that's where we get this creative expression that we're not in Western medicine, so it's not A then B then C. It's like, well, I'm going to get to C by going this way,
Uh-huh.
and that's very different for other people.
Yeah.
But hopefully all roads get you where you want to be.
Right. Right. And that's great. And then I want to circle back. You had talked about folk medicine kind of.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit more and what
Yeah.
kind of, because I'm not sure if the listeners, I'm totally not grasping it. So maybe some other people aren't either.
Yeah, I no, no, definitely, because folk medicine, the earliest forms of treatment, right? We didn't have doctors,
Mhm.
when we just fell out of the trees or walked out of the caves, or however you want to phrase that.
Right.
But some of the earliest methods of healing were, I mean, I wouldn't even call it prayer because I don't think it was organized religion back then.
Mhm.
But touching somebody, right? We
Mhm.
Before we had tools, we had hands,
Mhm.
and we put our hands on something that hurt. We'd use heat, right? So somebody would sit near a fire and notice they felt better. Um, we do massage. We know that certain foods had certain properties, and later we started to use herbs instead of
Mhm.
just the foods.
Mhm.
So all of these things that we do today, this high tech medicine, has its roots in traditional folk medicine, where it's like, no, somebody's going to go around out in the woods and they're going to pick this berry and mix it with these other herbs, and that's going to help somebody feel better. And thousands of years later, our Chinese Materia Medica, which is like where we have a collection of all the herbs, has over 1,500 herbs in it.
Wow.
And sure enough, modern studies are like, wow, how did they know they were making this compound that actually regulates this hormone? And it's amazing, but that's thousands of years of evolution of people just being human and
Mhm.
trying different things.
Mhm.
And that impacts how we practice medicine today.
Mhm.
So even the book I wrote on cupping, and I know we're going to get to that later,
Mhm.
that was folk medicine first, and that was folk medicine thousands of years before anything modern,
Yeah.
right? So your shamans, your village healers, whatever you want to call them, were doing actual clinical medicine, things that actually worked. It wasn't just ceremonies. And honestly, if we look at ceremonies as using the power of belief, some of those were very powerful too.
Mhm. Yeah.
And now we have fields like neurolinguistic programming and hypnotism, and we talk about the power of prayer, and it's all this mindset stuff, right? I mean, mindset. God, how many people call themselves a mindset coach now?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, what are you doing? You're doing exactly what shamans did years ago.
Mhm.
Oh, the music, the set and setting.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to say this thing over and over again. Oh, we're going to do these weird movements, right? EFT, emotional freedom
Yep.
technique,
Yep.
where we tap. All of these things, even though we've rebranded them and we've made them modern, we made them more palatable for us here in the West,
Mhm.
all of those roots were always there. It's
Mhm.
fundamental to who we are as humans, right?
Yeah.
So why take that away? My mentor used to say things like, look, you're starting out. He was horrible at practice management. He always just had so many students going, you got to see my mentor. And he always had a full practice. And he goes, look, you're starting out. Maybe your skills aren't that good, but the guy across the street doesn't play as good music as you do. The table isn't as comfortable, right? And he's talking about the placebo effect. He's talking about making somebody comfortable, which is a big part of it.
Mhm.
And there's true value in that, right? That adds to your better outcomes.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't shy away from any of that, and that all has roots in just folk medicine.
Mhm.
In this ability to interact with another human at a human level.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm thinking of a full circle. This started thousands of years
Yeah.
ago. And then somehow we're like, oh, that's not that great. We got to invent, these great, medical doctor things and all these protocols and
Yeah.
here and there. And then it's like slowly going
Well,
back to those thousands of years ago. And oh yeah, there is some truth to it. We can research it now. We can,
yeah.
go through all the scientific steps to say, yeah, it's good.
I love that. One of the things that is always interesting to me is, you mentioned you have a daughter that's a physical therapist.
Uh-huh.
Um, we as a field were, first 70s, 80s, they were really trying to disprove us, right? So they studied us a ton, and then they went, oh, they're actually doing what they say they're doing. How are they doing that? Right.
Mhm.
And what that did was give us a body of research. So if you go on the Cochrane database specifically, not PubMed, Cochrane database is another place to get research studies, specifically looking at systematic reviews. We have more than physical therapy and chiropractic put together. But the caveat was it wasn't because they loved us. It was because they were like, these guys are doing something weird. We don't know why it's working. We want to figure it out. Right.
Right.
And at first it was, that's all BS. How do we prove them wrong? And no, oh
Mhm.
my God, no, it actually does regulate hormones. No, they actually can regulate menstrual cycles. No, they actually can help increase, certain hormone production. Yeah, no, they can modulate the immune system. Yeah, and then it was, oh my God, how are they doing this? And we started to look at this cascade of effects
Mhm.
that in Chinese medicine, classically, we would say, oh, we smooth the flow of qi and the body return to health. And it's like, oh, regulation of the autonomic nervous system, fight or flight, rest and digest. Oh, modulating the immune system. Oh, getting more circulation to the gut. All of these things that we're like, how the hell are they doing that with needles? And we're playing with like physiological responses. And it's just
Mhm.
we've weaved them together over thousands and thousands of years so good
Mhm.
that we needed an eloquent system that we call the meridians and chi
Mhm.
flow
Yep.
as a placeholder because we couldn't look at those little tiny things under a microscope. We didn't have the MRIs. We didn't have the functional brain scans. To really give the medicine the credence that it deserves. And now they're filling in those gaps. And it's funny when we hear there's a Western medical style of acupuncture where they'll say, we do this point because we know it does this, or this is the protocol for this. And they've kind of taken some of the life out of it. And
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, well, let's use the classical terms. You're doing the same thing. You're speaking a different language,
Right.
which to me is like, all right, call it whatever you want. It works, you know?
Right. Right. And so you mentioned, and we're gonna get to that next here,
Yeah.
cupping.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wrote a book on cupping, and I'm just gonna show
Yeah.
it here for those people that
Oh,
can
thank
see
you.
the video, and I'm excited to read it because, my first experience with cupping actually came through my daughters who
Yeah. Yeah.
college athletes, and they come home and they have these, circular bruises on their shoulders or, something or on their back, and it's like, "What are you doing?" And so that was, like, the first introduction, and so
Yeah.
anybody that's kinda watches sports events or whatever, if you see the little, round bruises on somebody's shoulder, back, legs, whatever, that's cupping. And can you,
Yeah.
share a little bit, about what it is, who it is for?
Yeah, it's great that we're doing this during the Summer Olympics because I don't think there's
Yes.
a swimmer that doesn't have marks on them.
Oh, right, right.
And 2016, the day after Michael Phelps hopped out of the pool winning his first medal, our local NBC was at my office recording a piece on cupping.
Wow.
And it's funny because cupping is actually older than acupuncture. The earliest reference is 1515 BC, the Ebers Papyrus out of Egypt, but we know it was being practiced long before it was written down.
Mhm.
We don't even know if it's Egyptian in origin, which is kind of cool. But cupping is the use of a vacuum created in a, for lack of a better term, a cup. Traditionally, it was bamboo or buffalo horn or clay pots, even. And they would use fire to eat the oxygen and create this vacuum and adhere it to the body. Now, you'll hear some traditional explanations where they were pulling toxins out or even evils or devils or whatever, depending on the culture.
Yeah.
But really, what it's doing is it's pulling that skin up into the cup, creating a space by pulling the skin away from the fascia away from the muscle, and then pulling fresh blood through that tissue below. Right. So we know that, and this is one of the keys to acupuncture working. When we increase circulation to an area, we increase that healing potential.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons is we're flushing that tissue out. So any metabolic waste, and I hate saying toxins, but yeah, anything that shouldn't be in that tissue
Mhm.
gets to get pulled out. Inflammatory markers like cytokines or lactic acid from working out too much all get flushed out. Now at the surface, those small capillaries get broken in the same way as somebody getting a hickey. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way around that. But it shouldn't feel miserable. It can be strong in certain cases, but most people should find it moderately. They say I had one patient once describe it as like a reverse massage because instead of pressing, we're pulling. And
Uh-huh.
I said, wow, that's really accurate. Um, the circles themselves should not hurt when the process is over. The cups can be a little intense, but as the skin and the fascia loosen up, as that increased circulation gets there, the whole experience can be really relaxing. And we do it for a half an hour treatment in our office, and the
Mhm.
cups aren't on the half an hour. We normally stop at about 10-15 minutes, depending on the color.
Mhm.
But we'll do two stages. By the end of that second stage, a lot of them have fallen asleep.
Oh, yeah. Just I mean, I think about it as it's a way to relax muscles, but
Yeah,
what other kind of
exactly.
benefits are there?
Yeah.
Just
So
explain those.
the kind of magic of this, and this is weird, right? We don't know why they started doing it. We don't
Mhm.
know, who said, hey, let me stick this on you, and what the original thought process was. But what we found is circulation up to 6 inches deep, right? That's pretty insane, right? So if you think I put that on the back, I'm hitting the internal organs as well. If I put
Mhm.
that on the chest, I'm hitting the lungs. Yeah, so a lot of additional uses, right? Pain is the number one thing. We want to get
Mhm.
circulation through an area that's not getting good circulation. That's kind of the key
Mhm.
to relieving pain.
Mhm.
Get some inflammation out of that tissue. That's going to
Mhm.
relieve pain. But also treatment of the lungs. So chronic congestion, bronchitis, asthma, allergies, putting them on the upper chest or the upper back over the lung tissue will have an effect on the lungs. getting them on the lower back or the abdomen, we can help with digestion as well. So depending on constipation, diarrhea,
Mhm.
you can put those there and get more circulation to the gut.
Mhm.
So, this is anywhere that needs more circulation, you can have a positive effect.
Mhm.
Now, traditionally, when we used fire cupping, we had to use firm, rigid cups like
Mhm.
glass.
Mhm.
And I would say leave those to the professionals. Yes, grandmas did this all over the world for thousands of years and they got really, really good at it. But don't burn your house down. That's why it was excluded from my book. The invent of plastic and silicone made
Mhm.
these cups so much safer and easier. Part of the reason I send, hosts the book with the cups that I send, those silicone cups are really great because you can't put them on too tight.
Yeah.
They're easy to clean. Even the handle, and part of the reason I did the
Mhm.
handled ones is if you wanted to try sliding cupping, which is a technique where we put oil down first,
Mhm.
you need something to grab onto, and that handle up top makes it easy.
Yeah.
And those are a great size where for most people you can fit them on the upper arm, you could possibly get them on the lower arm.
Mhm.
When they're glass or they're hard, they don't conform to any curve on the body. So big flat muscles tend to be better.
Mhm.
And in my clinic, I love fire cupping. It's more authentic. We get to play with fire, which
Oh,
look, I'm
yeah.
a 12-year-old boy at heart. Um, yeah, so we get to do that, but I also think that's part of the showmanship of the treatment, getting back to that placebo effect that we were talking about.
Right.
But and people really like it. I can also dump the nastiest sterilizing agents on those cups, knowing that the next person is going to have an absolutely
Mhm.
clean cup to get treated with. And if I did that with the silicone or if I did that with plastic cups, I just ruined the cups.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like those for home use. I know a lot of other practitioners do like the pump.
Okay.
I have some suspicions about the valve on those, how to
Mhm.
clean those. If you
Yeah.
want those for a home set, they're another great option.
Mhm.
The plastic allows them to be in thousands of different sizes, so you can get little ones to kind of do
Mhm.
over the elbow, and some curved ones that'll fit a curved muscle a little bit better. But we go into that in the book. I mean, a lot of the book, the educational part is what would grandma have told me, and the safety stuff is
Mhm.
modern, the same thing we would teach in acupuncture schools.
Mhm.
And then the styles, the different types of cups, I want to cover those because there's so many. So I
Yeah.
gave you all the general categories in there. But this book is not meant to be you don't need a PhD to follow it. You just need to pick it up, read it. It's meant to be a short, quick read, and then I want you up practicing because that's how you learn it. You really get it by doing the thing.
Yeah. So this kind of like goes back to, folk medicine. You want to get it back
Absolutely.
into there because this is really interesting because my daughter, well, I got 5 daughters, so I'm doing the 4 oldest ones, they're
Okay. All right.
older
You got it.
and they're all in college or beyond. And one of them wanted cups for Christmas.
Yeah.
And so another daughter goes to her chiropractor because she gets cupping through the
Yeah. Yeah.
chiropractor
Yeah.
and said, "Hey, can you recommend some good cups for my sister, she wants some for Christmas." Well, that chiropractor, that particular one said, "Oh, no, you have to be trained in order to use them," and wouldn't give a, recommendation on the cups. And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's silly. You can go buy them everywhere."
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
my chiropractor is just like, "Oh, well, these are the ones I use. These would be easier at home, that." So,
It really, so and I'm not trying to knock that chiropractor.
right,
There is
right. I'm
some
not
there is some
either.
gatekeeping. I get upset when other healthcare professionals pick up acupuncture needles, and I
Mhm.
can give you the whole history of dry needling and all that, and tell you why I think it's dumb. And then I know you have a daughter that's a physical therapist, so I'm
Mhm.
going to go light.
Yeah.
But within that, it's like, well, then why not just refer them to me? That's what you're supposed to do. Let the
Mhm.
specialist do that thing. With cupping, God, I can name 3 movies in the US that were like around in the 60s, 70s that were showing laymen, quote unquote, doing it. This was always a home practice, so much so that we have a famous physician named Ge Hong, who he was around to about 300 to 380 AD. So, 4th century China, who literally wrote, and I'm paraphrasing here, um, hey guys, I know everybody's doing cupping at home, and we think it's beneath us, but we should really be doing it in clinic because it has this tremendous value. And he kind of brought it into Chinese medicine
Yeah.
proper. It was always done in Asia. Those silk trade routes that we call how many thousands of years old went back even further than we ever
Mhm.
thought. And wherever it came from, that Middle East, Persia, Greece, Egypt kind of area, it went east, it went west, it went north, it went south. So everybody was doing it. My favorite scene was Godfather Part Two, where the grandmother is doing it on the kitchen table, only because I'm Italian. Uh, we were gentrified. We didn't do anything like that. I don't want to, but she's doing it on the baby Fredo. She takes like a little glass out of the
Mhm.
cabinet and puts it on Fredo's chest. So one of the great things for me was when I was teaching at an acupuncture school in Manhattan with a large foreign student population, everybody would come in wherever they were from, tell me that their grandmother did it, and then explain how it was different from the Chinese method. Right.
Mm,
And even the Chinese method is just the method we taught at school. It wasn't being done all over China. So in Italy, sometimes they take a big coin, they put a little brandy soaked piece of cotton on it, light that on fire, and then put something on top. So for me, when somebody's trying to gatekeep it as like, no, you can't do this at home. Well, look, if you go, I don't know how many Chinese grocery stores or Asian markets you have near you, but if you go into an Asian market and go down the healthcare wellness product kind of section, there'll be three or four cupping kits. And why? Because this is done at home. This is done
yeah.
before you go see the physician. Now, if you need more, that's when you go and see your PT, your chiropractor, your massage therapist, acupuncturist, who who should be trained in
Mhm.
doing it. And the treatment will be a little bit more intense, but that doesn't mean you can't do it safely at home. This is
Mhm.
not something that was ever meant. It was funny in doing my research for this book. I did, buy the giant Scholastic. This is the one they use to teach everybody with, and I went, this is 300 pages of them saying not that much. Yeah, and really, yes, there's certain maybe deeper into the physiology, but you don't need that to make it work,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
We don't not many of us can put a car together by ourselves, but we most of us drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
in that case, this is similar, right? I don't
Right.
need to know the physiological changes underneath the tissue to see the benefits and be able to apply it safely.
Mhm.
There's just a few contraindications. We cover that in the book, and then you're kind of free to play here. If it makes sense, it's intuitive.
Yeah. So really the book, somebody can pick it up and kind of go through it pretty quickly because it is
That
pretty thin. I mean, it's
that
not a
was the
very
goal.
big
That
book.
was
It
the
looks like
goal.
it's
Yeah,
really easy to read. So they could pick it up and they could, it's meant to be applied. They
yeah.
can go ahead and try it out. They can,
Yeah, and if you go on Amazon and you
mm,
throw that in the cart, chances are it'll suggest cups.
okay.
But go ahead and search, and you have color,
Oh
size,
yeah.
number. You have so many selections, and the great thing is, like, I wrote this in the back of the book. There's clearly I want to make money. I don't want to make it sound like I don't, but the more people doing things that help their health and the health of their family and friends outside of the medical system, the better results we will all have, the healthier, happier lives we will all have.
Mhm.
So, in a very specific way, a very intentional way, I wanted to democratize cupping. I wanted to demonetize it, right? Yes, you pay
Mhm.
for my book, you buy the cups, but after that, the knowledge is yours. Those silicone cups will outlast us.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so it's not something that, after that initial expense is going to cost that much. And I tried to
Mhm.
price the book in line with every other book that is, a how-to book on something in a related field.
Right. Right.
And, I mean, if you thought for under $50 that you can get away with learning a new technique and having the tools you need, I think that's a pretty good investment. And
Yeah.
then be able to share that with friends and family. Yes, you're going to need people to help you put them on your back, and you're going to have to put them on somebody else's back, but you can do it to yourself as well.
Mhm.
Some of the kits I love because you can throw those in your gym bag and they take up like no more space than like a tennis ball.
Right. Right. And that's great because, just getting people to take control
Yeah.
of themselves and that they know what's best for them and to try some alternative medicine practices, I
Yeah.
guess, to be able to relieve pain and to feel better and just get more life out of just living.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because you will have plenty of people that say no, only practitioners should be doing
Mhm.
that. Then
Yep.
if you look at the history, if you look at the safety of it, right? Like, come on. Come on. Look, I'm not going to take a scalpel to myself.
Right.
But Yeah, there's certain things where it's like, is this a big risk? You know, and we even watch that in Western medicine, right?
Mhm.
Oh, this drug's a prescriptive drug. Well, a decade later, now it's over the counter. Well,
Yeah.
what happened? It's the same drug. Oh, we found out how safe it was. Or well, maybe the drug companies just want to make more money. But let's
You
maybe
never know
that's
with
not as
yeah,
virtuous
you
as
never
I
know.
originally stated there. But within that, there's a lot that we can do.
Mhm.
And every step, everything we do, every meal we eat, every exercise, every time we go to the gym, every time we meditate, every time we stretch, all of those things, add a little plus to the good side of our health.
Yeah.
And things like this can definitely add up to a longer, healthier life.
Right. And with a minimal investment to start
Yeah.
with, and then you
Yeah.
have a lifetime of influence for yourself and your family members. And who knows, you can have a friend party and let's all, get together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. My kids, back when they were a little younger than now, sometimes they'd let me do it to them. And then they go, no, 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 I don't want you to do it. And then I came home one day and there's my 5-year old, no shirt on, covered in cupping marks. And my 8-year old also has cupping marks all over her. And I would, you guys won't let me do it. Yeah, yeah. We played acupuncturist. And I went, okay, at least they didn't pick up needles. But yeah, they had marks all over them, and
Mhm.
none of them were particularly to treat anything, but I knew they weren't going to hurt themselves.
Right. Right. And just the interest of it
Yeah.
and that they're going to be open to it.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? It looks foreign, it sounds foreign, but no, it's part of your history too. I
Mhm.
guarantee you, whatever country of origin your family came from, they did some of this.
Yeah.
Someone there did it.
That's great. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation and very informative. Where can people find out more about you or your book? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, yeah. So I normally give people two websites.
Okay.
My book is listed on every major online retailer. That's Amazon, Barnes and Noble,
Mhm.
and then 60 others. Uh, smaller ones if you don't want to support the big guys.
Yep.
Um, with that, you can find information about me, my clinic, book me for lectures, all that kind of stuff at Charm City Integrative. Charm City is Baltimore's nicer moniker. Integrative, TIVE.com. So charmcityintegrative.com. And then the cupping book is available at thecuppingbook.com. All of those websites I listed there
Mhm.
are also listed on that website.
Okay.
But you can read little excerpts and hear a little bit more about the book before you buy. Really, this is all just a mission to try and take care of as many people as possible. And I know not everybody's in Baltimore, and certainly I can't
Right.
even touch the surface of the population of Baltimore unless I do stuff like this. So
Yeah.
I'm interested in lecturing and teaching more, and
Mhm.
yeah, hopefully you reach out and ask me questions there.
Yes, that's great because, we can only make an impact, a little bit,
Yeah.
but this is for the greater good and to impact way more people. So I really appreciate you being on and
Oh,
sharing all of
thank you.
this information. So as we wrap up today, do you have a thought or a quote that you would like to leave the
Ha.
listeners with?
No, no. I think, other than cupping, and I seem to be saying this at almost every time somebody asks me, I would love if people started meditating more. I know that that sounds so new age and hippie, and I promise you I'm more punk than hippie. I mean, they're both in there. But but after trying to meditate since 1994, the benefits have been profound for me. I'm
Mhm.
more mentally and emotionally stable and secure than I've ever been. And wow, that sounds like I was broken before. But um but the benefits keep adding up,
Mhm.
and it doesn't take a long time, a few minutes a day. The more important thing is the consistency.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm busy at the clinic. I try and do as many of these podcasts as I possibly can a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly being pulled in other directions, and I would be completely unhinged if I didn't meditate. And I know everybody on the planet would benefit if they meditated. And guess what? That costs absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
Don't make me write a book on it, because then I'll have to charge for the book. Uh,
Okay, listeners that like they think about that and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't do it. My brain's like running in a
yeah,
thousand different directions." Like, where does somebody start? Like,
you,
what's a basic, if you want to start meditation,
yeah.
obviously
So
it took you about what, 20 years to kind of get
it,
it right?
to get consistency. Really, you getting it right is not the goal, right? People think, oh, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to close my eyes, there's not going to be a thought. There's constant thoughts, right? So the goal is to train yourself not to be attached to them, right? So
Mm,
we like classically they'll say, let thoughts float by like clouds passing in the sky, right? So
mm,
when we judge it, that's where we beat ourselves up, right? Oh shit, I had a thought.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I ruined it. Oh, I'm just trying to count to 10. Each breath I'm going to count. Oh, no, I thought in between 2 and
mhm,
3. No,
yeah,
start over. And then we're brutal with ourselves, right?
mhm,
No. Oh, okay, I'm starting over. Okay. All right, I had a thought. Just let it go. And what I find now is some of my best meditations, there's thoughts going on. I'm trying not to pay attention to them. I'm just not
yeah,
attached to them. I'm like, there's a movie playing and I'm just not watching it.
yeah,
So that takes time, and long sessions will burn you out and upset you and frustrate you, and you won't do it again. So start with a couple of minutes, start with a few breaths,
mhm,
even if it's as simple as closing your eyes. I'm going to take 3 breaths. I'm going to have my hands on my belly button and just picture that
mhm,
inflating and deflating.
yeah.
So much value in that.
Yeah, and I think it's just to simplify it because that's what people really need. They just think it's this, thing that they have to like really sit down a long time, not have any thoughts, but really it
Yeah.
is just taking a breath.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
is just, just taking a moment to just chill.
Yeah.
And you're going to have those thoughts, but really love not attaching anything to it because that's really what it is because then we create this meaning that oh we can't do it, all that. But
Yeah, we beat ourselves up.
yeah,
Yeah. We really, in a lot of ways, we're always our own worst critic. And we'll say, oh God, people are going to judge me. And it's like, who's going to judge you? You're sitting in a room alone.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's okay.
yeah. I think we've all experienced moments of, like, daydreaming. I
Yeah.
mean, I kind of like it's not you kind of been meditating because you haven't been really thinking about anything.
Yeah,
You've been
and you need that, a lot of what East Asian medicine does, and I would argue a lot about most traditional medicines and even modern medicines. We know if we can regulate that autonomic nervous system, that fight or flight versus that rest and digest, we get improved benefits. That
Mhm,
rest and digest mode, that parasympathetic nervous system mode, can be triggered through so many different activities,
mhm,
and in meditation's case, non-activity.
yeah,
Uh,
yep,
but it needs to be trained and it needs to be flexed, and this will keep us out of that anxiety, depression kind of swing,
yeah.
which so many of us suffer.
Right. Right. Well, this has been awesome, Tom. I appreciate you being here. So much gems about East Asian medicine, cupping, just some non-traditional views of that have been actually around for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for writing your book on cupping
Thank you.
to get it out into the world and the masses to say this is something that's been going on for centuries and you can do it and relieve some ailments of your own, mainly pain for
Mm.
sure, to start there and increase circulation in different areas and meditate. So thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you so much for having me, Peggy. This has been a pleasure.